Hello, everybody. Pastor Randy here. Welcome to Making It Simple. It is our Friday edition. We've reached the end of another week. I certainly hope that you're having a beautiful day. Friday is typically my day off from the office, so I get the honor and blessing of being at home this morning. Spent some time out on the pier today. Saw some sharks, saw some stingrays, and some some beautiful creation. I want us to talk today about the moment. What do I mean by that? Everybody has the moment in their life. In other words, somewhere along the way, when you realize the truth about something, whatever it may be, it could be about a relationship, it could be about a career, it could be about something about yourself, and most particular, it could be about your understanding of things of faith. There's that moment that God opens that door that allows us to peer in for just a moment and just long enough to say, aha, I get it. Now, not everybody's willing to take that moment. Not everybody's willing to embrace that moment. And certainly not everybody's willing to look in when that door opens. But it will come. Everybody gets the moment. All depends on what you do with it. That's up to you. He's not going to make you look. He's not going to come drag you in kicking and screaming. But the moment will be there. What we've been talking about over the last few days, I realize is a little heavy, but I would not use the word controversial because I stand by what I say. I feel very convicted by what the Lord gives me to present. And one of the things that I believe very clearly is the correlation between what we're reading and studying right here in the book of John as to how it relates to our modern times. It's nearly a mirror image. And that goes even further today because the moment took place in everybody's life in this passage today. The moment took place as to which way are you going to go. While the leaders at that time were adamant, they wanted nothing to threaten their position. Nothing or nobody. And they weren't going to change that position. They weren't. Why? Because it's a matter of the heart. And they were absolutely, totally unwilling in every capacity to consider things in such a way that it would allow that pricking, that change moment in their heart that would allow them to see something else. They were blinded by their lust for power. They were blinded by their unwillingness to budge. Now, I know that we've met and know stubborn people in this life as it comes to certain things, or they're just never going to cooperate. That could be personality, that could be this or that. But friends, we're talking about matters of life and death. Because the Bible is very clear that he who knows the Son, Jesus, has life. He who has not known the Son, or who does not know the Son, or doesn't accept the Son, has no life, but has death upon them. As we look at this passage today, I want us to look at the moment. I want us to understand what this means. Yesterday we closed off, and Jesus made it very clear. You say that you're serving God. You say that you are messengers or teachers, if you will, of God. However, you don't even know God. Boy, they did not like that at all. Most in positions of power do not like to be challenged. That hasn't changed because there's typically an agenda there. And there's a pride and there's this and that. Now, again, it's not to stereotype anybody, but we got to understand the circumstances here. These were people in authority positions that had people subject to them that would do what they say and go as they say and all the other stuff. And they didn't want that changed. They really like that. Here comes Jesus along saying, I'm not telling people to not listen. I'm not telling people to not be, obedient and respect authority. I'm not saying that at all. However, when you're abusing your position and when you're not being honest in your position and you're not governing and you're not helping, but only abusing your situation and your power for the gain of more power, you're wrong. They didn't want to hear that. So it says in verse 30, I got to put on my readers here today. They sought to take him. In other words, he's got to go. And we need to do it right now. They wanted to lock him up. They wanted to drag him off. They wanted to get rid of him right that very, very minute because they did not like this challenge at all. And it said, but no man, this is verse 30 of chapter 7, for those following along in this daily study. Then they sought to take him, but no man laid hands on him because his hour was not yet come. In other words, his words created phenomenal anger. They were hot. They did not want him there. They wanted to arrest him. They wanted him gone. They wanted to take him out of the way, but they did not. Now, there's a couple of different things we need to understand about that. Number one, it says here, it was not his time. Okay, he knew his prophetic time and how that was going to happen. So it was, in other words, it wasn't in God's time. This was not going to take place. This does not upend the idea that ultimately it will happen, but it wasn't going to happen right that minute. The other side is this. This was in the daylight. There was too many people around that would have opposed their actions because they knew it was wrong. Because people were beginning to understand. Remember, let's go back. People were saying, wait a minute, this guy, he might be the one. There's a reason that he can speak with great authority and they don't rebuke him. They don't rebut him. They don't, what's going on here? People were they were having the moment. They were beginning to look at what in the world was going on. And so there was too many people around who would have opposed. Therefore, it wasn't politically beneficial to do it right that minute. That's the other side of that. That's what we have to understand. But they wanted to. And of course, ultimately they would do it, but under the cover of night. So they didn't get a lot of pushback when nobody would be around to challenge them. You're saying, well, Pastor, wait a minute. That sounds awfully familiar. Yeah, it really does. It really, really does. Be mindful, friends. Open your eyes. So this was again being seen in public. And it says in verse 31, many people believed on him. People started getting saved, if you want to use that word. They started accepting the living bread. They started to understand, wait a minute, this is not a speculation anymore that this might be, that is the answer. He is the one. Nobody could do this. Nobody could do this. His teaching was unlike anybody else. He's got a willingness to stand up for the truth. He's got a willingness to stand up for what is right. He is inspiring. He is changing lives. He is the one that we need. Nobody else could do such a thing. This is the Christ. This is the Messiah. This is the one we've been waiting for. They were having the moment. They were able to see it. The leaders could see that they were seeing it. And it caused them even more anxiety. It caused them even more angst and more anger. Because now they knew that their position was threatened. Because people were opening their eyes to the truth. Generationally, time-wise, every other way, every section of history goes back to that moment, to when your eyes are finally open to the truth. It is my daily prayer that more and more and more people would open their eyes to the truth. Friends, it's all right here. It says, when Christ comes, Could he do more miracles than this man has done? In other words, we found the answer. Here it is. Here's our moment. We don't have to wait anymore. And it said, and people believed on him. But then in verse 32, it says, but the Pharisees, remember the leaders, the ruling class, the religious leaders, everything here that ran through them, they were in charge. They heard the people. They heard the people saying such things concerning him. This was their moment. This was their, okay, we got to do something, because this is not going to work in our benefit at all. People's eyes are beginning to see things that we don't want them to see. The curtain's been pulled back. People are beginning to realize the truth and understand what is happening because of the presence of Christ, the teachings of Christ, the reality of him. They were beginning to see this because, again, when we open our eyes and understand and have the willingness to listen to what Jesus is saying, then you'll have the moment and your life will be forever changed, and nothing will blind you to that again. Nothing. Because the ways Paul would speak about not only having the full armor, but saying that we'd be protected from the wiles of the devil in that day. When is that day? Whenever your eyes are opened. Yeah, we can look at it from all kinds of prophetic ways about this time and that. But the moment that your eyes are open, that's your moment. Because then you see the reality of Christ. You also see the reality of the enemy, whatever and whoever and however that may be labeled, because that enemy has no desire for anything good in your life. But you realize that Jesus does. The Pharisees, the leadership, whatever the case at that time, they knew that too. See, they were also having the moment because they saw it. However, they rejected it. They rejected it. I heard an illustration once that said you could go stand on the shoreline, the beachfront in Hawaii. Now, I'm going to date myself a little bit, but most of you that are my age or above, you remember the opening sequence to the old television police drama, Hawaii Five-0. I know there's a new version, but for me, Jack Lord, Bookham Dano, okay, that's where we got to go. That opening sequence had this phenomenal wave that was coming. Beautiful. The surfer's dream. Heard an illustration once that said you could go and stand on that shoreline in Hawaii and see that wave coming. You know that it's there. But you can turn your back to it and say, I don't believe it. Not going to be there, not going to happen. It's not real. But you're still going to get wet. You can deny it all you want. You can ignore it all you want, but it doesn't make it go away. That's what the moment is. You can deny it. You can say that it didn't happen. You can say that it's not there. But that doesn't reject it. That doesn't refute it because it was. That's why when these stand before God one day, whenever their time would come, they would never be able to say, well, I didn't know, because that's not true. Many of us today have the moment happen right in front of us. It could be listening to a broadcast like this. It could be reading. It could be anything. It could be at the birth of a child. It could be all kinds of moments that open our eyes, but we say no. But then one day when we stand before God, and it is clear that we will, when that history is replayed, and again, that is not about trying to remind you of everything bad you ever done or every hiccup you ever had in life. No. It's what did you do with the moment? Did you say yes? Or did you say, nope, I'm going to do it my way? That's what this all comes down to. And this is what created the scenario. And so the people were saying yes, the leadership was saying no. And so they heard the people. They heard the people as they were speaking about him. And it said the Pharisees and the chief priest sent officers to take him. In other words, okay, guys, that's it. He's got to go. This is a threat to us. We can't have this. So understand this now. The Pharisees and the chief priest, all right, that would later on be revealed. These were two different groups who generally did not like each other. We can absolutely equate that to two political parties who were constantly at conflict. They didn't care for one another. They didn't agree on policies. They didn't agree on this and that. However, they found that they had a common enemy, the one guy who exposed both sides. And they didn't like it. So they set their differences aside of their dislike for one another and came together in the mindset, he's got to go. Because their hatred of Jesus allowed them to look beyond their hatred of one another. Why? Why? Because they didn't want to be found out. They didn't want the truth to get out because they didn't want people to think for themselves. They didn't want people to live for themselves. They did not want people to have the abundant life that Jesus came to give. My question to you is, has that changed? No. Jesus still wants to give you the abundant life. The enemy still doesn't want you to have it. You have to decide which one's more powerful, which one you're going to allow to have authority in your life. The people were talking among themselves. The leadership heard that. They felt threatened by that. The enemy hears us talking. He feels threatened by that. Oh no, not another one. Not another one that's going to come to Jesus today. I don't want to lose any more. Jesus has made the offer. The moment is right now. Which one are you going to allow to have authority and power in your life? The one who can give you eternal life or the one who can take it away from you? Jesus said, don't fear the one that can take your life. Fear the one that can take your soul. What does that mean? Jesus has the keys to heaven. He has the keys to eternity. Wouldn't it make sense to follow the one that can let you in versus the one that the door will remain locked to? Makes sense, doesn't it? It tells us here, then said Jesus unto them, yet a little while I am with you. He was speaking of physical, literal presence. He says, and then I will go unto him who sent me. He goes back to that reference again. He said, I'm only going to be here for just a little while more. As again, he's speaking of the time before the crucifixion. Of course, this had not come quite into play yet. They wanted to kill him. They had not devised the instrument by which they wanted to do that at this moment, because they've had moments. They wanted to stone him and all these different things, but ultimately they would come up with the cruelest vice of death that had ever been made at that time. And we'll talk about that, of how God used that moment to transform human history forever. And he says here, though, when my time is done, when that window is closed, I'm going back to where I came from. And he says in verse 34, you will look for me, but you won't find me. Now that's important, because he says, where I am, you can't come. What was he talking about? Let's talk about that for just a minute as we wrap up. He's saying here, a veiled understanding of eternity. He's talking about salvation and time and the understanding of what he came to give. In other words, what he's saying is, when you look for me, when you really need me, when you're reaching out for answers and you really need me, but you can't come and find me because you're looking at this from a literal, physical standpoint of, we got to go around the corner over to Jesus' house and get the answer. He said, no, not going to work that way. He's talking about eternity. See, they were only dealing with the literal. They were never looking at the spiritual. They weren't looking at the consequence. They weren't looking at anything but the moment, and I just want to deal with it right now. And I don't want to look at what that may hold or the consequence that may come with it. But that's exactly what he was trying to get them to understand. This is your moment. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to ignore it? Or are you going to understand this can change your life forever when you come to know this truth? He speaks of eternity, of salvation, of time. And he's saying, you need me now. You have me right now. That's why he says, I'm only here for a little while. You need me right now because I'm here right now. But you reject me. You reject me. And by the time you realize that you need me, you realize what you've done. And in that moment of desperation, it will feel like it's too late. Now, I believe that we have until our very last breath, but do you want to take that chance? Do you want to take that chance? Because, friends, as we've shared together over the last several months through my own personal, I don't want to use the word tragedies, but personal griefs, the death of a sister, the death of a very, very close friend. I just got another call this morning of another friend that passed away. I deal with death all the time. I did a funeral this past week. It's real. It's real. What are we going to do with our moment? People here began to talk when they realized this is real. But both sides began to talk because they realized it was real. And that's what Jesus was trying to get them to understand. This is your moment. What are you going to do with it? Because when you realize what you've done in your rejection, you're going to be scrambling around saying, what have I done? What can I do to fix it? Because then their heart has been closed to the understanding, as it tells us in the book of Romans, that nothing can separate us from the love of God. In other words, he desires that none should perish, that all should come into eternal life. But the one that has closed their mind off to that reality, when they've left their moment, they're not thinking about that anymore. They accept defeat and crawl off and say, well, there's nothing I can do. And they don't look anymore. And we get back to seek and you shall find. When one begins to become unwilling to seek, they're no longer willing to make an action and to be able to look. So he's saying here, you won't be able to get what you're looking for because that door has been closed in your mind. So you won't look. It took the rich man in the story of rich man and Lazarus. The illustration there gives us that it took the rich man going to hell. In other words, that picture of separation as it looks in that way, in order for him to realize what he did. This is what Jesus was telling these very ones. You keep on waiting. You keep on throwing away your moment. By the time your eyes are opened, you'll believe that it's too late. Friends, this is not gloom and doom. I want you to understand that. He's trying to speak to them in such a manner that will get them to open their eyes right then and not wait. Time is precious. Time is precious. None of us are promised tomorrow. This is not gloom and doom. This is reality. As we go into the weekend, it is my prayer that you'll think about the moment. Have you had the moment? Have you had it broadcast right in front of you? And again, it may not even be in this manner of a video or a television program or whatever. It could be anything. It could be, again, the birth of a child. It could be the beauty of creation. It could be all kinds of different things that cause you to have that moment. Did you say, I need to embrace this, I need to do something with this, or did you walk away? Because if you did, right now is your moment. You're getting another chance. He said, I'm here for a little while. There's always an opportunity. It's my prayer that as we go into this weekend, regardless of your plans, whether it's doing nothing, whether it's going fishing, spending time with family, whatever, say yes to Jesus. It'll change your life. We saw the people here open their eyes, and they began to talk among themselves, and the leadership felt threatened by that. Why would ever leadership feel threatened by the truth. Only when they're trying to hide a lie. Only when they're trying to hide something nefarious that they're trying to do that they don't want you to know. I don't speak of any one particular outlet, one particular group. That's just truth. That's just a general blanket over the whole thing. And that is exactly what Jesus was trying to get us to see. Open your eyes, friends. Open your eyes and let Him open your heart to understanding your need for Him and how much better life will be with Him than without Him. I hope you have an awesome weekend. Enjoy your time. Enjoy your family. Enjoy every minute. Tell somebody you love them. Let somebody know how you feel. Embrace the moment and embrace the truth of Christ. And He will give you the promise of life eternal with Him in a place that knows no sorrow. God bless you. Lord willing, I'll see you Monday right back here at Making It Simple.